Welcome to another episode of Distorted Opinions. I'm once again joined by Matt and Ted, and we're continuing our Music Teacher Appreciation series this week with a guy that I think probably started it all for us, Mr. Ed Tree. We started band, I believe, in 4th grade, and Mr. Tree was the guy that taught us all how to read music, how to play our selected instruments, and it's really not an easy job teaching 4th graders how to read music and play a variety of different instruments, but Mr. Tree did it. And Ted, I know you were involved in the pit for a number of different musicals, which Mr. Tree directed, and Matt, you did a lot of stage crew and you acted in a number of musicals as well, so you worked closely with Mr. Tree in that regard. And I know I've got a lot of memories of Mr. Tree as well, and our last several Teacher Appreciation episodes have gone really long, so I have no doubt that we're going to have a lot to talk about with Mr. Tree, so let's get right into it. Matt, why don't you go ahead and start with some of your stories and fond memories of Mr. Tree?
Oh, where to begin? Well, I think anything that describes, Mr. Tree and moving forward in conversations, and even previously, in a previous episode, we talked about another teacher we highly admire. I'm just going to use the formality because, trying to talk on a first name basis is a little abnormal. So,
Yeah.
But obviously, Edwin Tree, I'm going to refer to him as Mr. Tree because that's just how I am. But Mr. Tree, the one word that comes to mind is honestly perfection. Okay. He took music 110% to his heart when it came down to his teachings, to working with students individually on a one-on-one basis. The guy was brilliant in my eyes. I'm sure he was brilliant in your guys' eyes too. And if there was anything that he was curious about was when I started learning guitar, I actually went to him. He was my first person to go to when it came down to music theory. And although he wasn't exactly strategic when it came down to certain styles of guitar playing, when it came down to music theory and music composition, the guy was able to, really roll with it. Didn't matter what the instrument was. Okay. Whether it was in this clef or in that clef, it was all different. The guy knew what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Tree is, another inspiration to who I am as a musician today. I know I said in another episode that really he was the one to drive me into learning trombone, in 4th grade. And, at that time, it was a very, it was very confusing because, all my friends, had these instruments that had buttons, and I was given this brass instrument that had a slide. And I felt kind of like the odd, the odd duckling out of that whole group. And
we still think you're the odd duckling, so that didn't change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, funny. But it's one of those things that moving forward later on down in life, it was a great ideal sensibility of leadership. Because I graduated with the instrument later on down the road, and I actually started playing the instrument even after the years of graduation for, some funk bands I joined, some, composition pieces that I wrote. Again, all due to the fact of Mr. Tree just handing me this instrument. Now, in the very beginning, and I'll be very transparent, I think in the very beginning, we didn't see eye to eye in the beginning. And I think that was mostly because, again, I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted to sit in the same row as my friends. Okay, there was even a point in time where I said, I'm not doing the trombone, I want to do the trumpet. And I went out and I got a trumpet, and I came and sat down in the trumpet section. And I remember him giving me this look like, what the hell are you doing? And I said, well, I left my trombone at home because I'm doing trumpet now. And he goes, no, you're not. You're doing trombone. And I went, no, I'm doing trumpet. I want something that has buttons to it. I don't want a damn slide. So he eventually pulled me aside one day and goes, Matt. Sometimes he called me Matthew, kind of like when you're in trouble with a parent. But that time he was like, Matt, listen, I could really use you for the bass section. Okay, and this is the reason why, A, B, and C. One of them being there was only one other trombone player, and he didn't really have the confidence in him. So he, for some reason, felt and saw that I had a talent to go ahead and move forward with this instrument. And I said, okay, I completely understand now. And remember, I'm like 4th grade, okay? So he went ahead and, he made me change my mind, and I put away the trumpet. And ended up, being one of 2 trombone personnel in the section. Eventually down the road, it then ended up becoming 1-person trombone player. And that's where, our friend Chris came in, Chris Harris. He was a guest on one of our episodes, and he picked up the trombone. And he ended up playing trombone, with me aside. So what was great about that is that later on in the years, it may have not happened right then and there in 4th grade. Okay, but later on down the years, I managed to be with a friend in the same section. So it made that passion to be part of that trombone even further. With Mr. Tree, so even moving forward, now middle school's ended, now we're in high school. And now we have another great teacher to go ahead and, lead us in a great, direction, Mrs. Cordio, that, Mr. Tree still stuck around. And her class and his class were right next to each other. Mm-hmm. So there were some times where, and I'm not sure if you guys did this, but there were some times that even after school that, the middle school got out later on than the high school. So if I were to go ahead and hang out after school, I would go hang out in Mr. Tree's area and just talk with him, just, talk about, different parts of music. There were some times where he said, hey, do you mind, giving some of my students some lessons on the trombone? And I would do that just for the hell of it, because again, that's how much high respect I had for him. There would be times where I would just sit in his office and we would just talk, just regular conversation. It didn't matter what it was. But that sparked a whole nother interest to understanding musicals. So when musicals started happening, okay, it started becoming another peak in my musicianship to go ahead and understand now what's theater about. So we got the whole performance art aspect of just a regular instrument, okay, singing. And now we have the actual performance part of theater and Broadway. And Mr. Tree really went ahead and said, I could use you for these parts. So there were some parts where I would be a fill-in for, say, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, to parts where he would say, he would be completely open to being a part of stage crew. And most of the time I've been in theater with Mr. Tree was mostly with stage crew. I've always found it fun. My dad was a stage crew for Regal Players and Waltham, most of my family. So that inspired me to go ahead and try out what stage crew is. And, without, getting further whatnot, and I'm sure, we'll revert back and whatnot, but Ted, I know you were a part of stage crew, with me. And I'm sure that you have multiple experiences, with, working together on stage crew, especially under Mr. Tree and his direction. What could you provide to us? What are some of your experiences and memories?
Oh man, like stage crew in particular, it was my first time being a part of anything for theater on that end. I did enjoy the behind the scenes work, building the props and sets and things like that. We would show up on Saturdays and Mr. Tree would order pizzas and, the handful of us stage crew would just be sitting around painting and, putting stuff together, and building whatever was needed for whatever show we were working on. Because we did Wizard of Oz back in, I think that was our 5th grade. And then every year there was a different musical, and I always continued to participate because at that point, and I'll talk about it a little bit, I had already built a good relationship with Mr. Tree, and definitely enjoyed being able to spend time with him. So even the extracurricular, showing up on a Saturday for 5 hours on the weekend to build props and build a set for whatever the play was, definitely I look back on fondly. And I mean, as a kid, I didn't mind losing a Saturday because I felt like I was accomplishing something. And then, I don't know, it was such a good time. So definitely no complaints there.
100%. And, I definitely can relate to, those Saturdays. And I don't know about you, but they were fun. And actually, I'm sure that you felt too that, some of those days were, the day obviously flew. And I'm sure that there were days where it's like, oh, wait, we have to go home. Like, we can't continue this project because, again, it was something that we were very hands-on. Mr. Tree had a bunch of ideas, especially for, prop building. And, even got our parents involved too. And I know, Ted, your dad worked with Mr. Tree, on multiple occasions when it came down to production.
Well, and that's where that friendship started. Me participating in stage crew, and my dad driving me there and helping out, and working basically from that particular event, that play, Wizard of Oz, being the first one. My dad wound up participating in some capacity as chaperone, or with the for Wizard of Oz in particular, there's a puff of smoke when Oz appears, and the famous story, which is now infamous, is that there was a forget the flash pot, I think it was the term, and it's basically a little static charge, and it just ignites powder, and it creates a puff of smoke, and it's a good stage, piece, just to excite the audience with what the entrance of Oz, the dragon in particular. Yeah, and so as the story goes, curtains open for this scene, the flash pod is set, and Mr. Tree is at the piano in the pit, helping choreograph the whole thing for the performance. This is a show, and the flash pot goes off, and it sounds like a cannon. The flash pot was overpacked with powder.
Oh no.
My dad from the side stage thought he blew a hole in the floor. I'm on stage crew, you're not supposed to be seen. I peer out with just to make sure there's nothing on fire, because it just, like I said, it was a cannon in the auditorium, which obviously has good acoustics, so it was even more thunderous.
Boom!
Yeah, and there's kids, babies crying, people were just completely, jumped out of their skin because they weren't expecting it.
Thanks for coming to our musical.
Yeah, that was that was the beginning after intermission. Welcome back. So
hope you used the bathroom while you were away.
Yeah, otherwise you just did. So that whole experience was one of the funniest things. And in hindsight, that was one of the biggest jokes between Mr. Tree and my dad for years. He's like, I thought there's enough powder. It was fine. It literally just jumped off the stage and came down. Oh man, that's one of the highlights, I would say, for inside jokes. You had to be there.
Oh man, it's
oh, that boom. Yeah, that was something.
Well, with that, I mean, it's there's so many fun memories of that in Mr. Tree and whatnot. But Kayla, I know that you have some memories of Mr. Tree and in your time, of working with him. And I know that, at one point we all shared, the same music class too with him. So what could you say? What are some fond memories that you have of Mr. Tree and working with him closely?
Yeah, so I wasn't involved in the musicals like you guys were, but I had Mr. Tree from fourth grade through eighth grade, and I remember fourth grade. Mr. Tree's specialty was piano, and I don't know about you guys, but I remember hearing a lot of stories about his practice routines growing up, and it was a lot of like practice makes perfect kind of stories. And as a fourth grader, and still kind of now, I really just wanted to wake up one morning and be good. I really didn't want to have to practice. I didn't want to have
Don't
to
we
put in the
all?
time.
It
Yeah,
doesn't matter
yeah,
what instrument.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Just
sure that there are plenty of scenarios where both of our great teachers have given us the evil eye because we have left our instruments there and indirectly have said, some of you didn't take some of your instruments home over the weekend.
right. Yes,
Hey,
exactly.
practice makes perfect.
That's right. So, it seemed like a very long period of time where I just didn't want to practice. I just wanted to be good, and I didn't know how to read the music. I didn't know how to play the songs, and it seemed like almost overnight I suddenly decided, you know what, I'm going to practice. And on, I don't know, a Saturday morning, I got up and spent the entire weekend learning to read the music and playing the songs in the book. And I don't know if it was just Mr. Tree's stories about his regiment for practicing piano that suddenly made me decide, like, oh, hey, okay, maybe I should take this thing out of the case and actually play it. But, one day it just kind of clicked. And, again, like I said in the beginning, teaching fourth graders to play music is not really an easy thing. Fourth graders don't always have a good level of concentration, and like Matt, your story about you just want to hang out with your friends.
Yep.
So it wasn't an easy job by any means. But I know in a previous episode, I believe it was Ted mentioned that a lot of the music programs that we were involved with happened outside of school hours. Jazz band was after school. Musical rehearsals were after school. A lot of marching band stuff took place after school. But one of the things I remember was in middle school, there was a 5th and 6th grade band, and there was a 7th and 8th grade band. And I don't remember if it was just one of them or both of them, but at least one of them that I can remember, practices were actually before school started, and school started at like 7:05 or 7:15 in
High
the morning.
school
It
started
was
at 7:15 or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty early, which meant that we were probably showing up for rehearsals at
When the high
6
schools
in the
were showing
morning.
up.
Yeah, it was pretty early. I remember that. And, if you think about it, like, I don't know if I speak for all kids, but I know I speak for myself. Mornings were not my thing. So to be getting up early in the morning to show up before school to practice with the band, I think says a lot about the teacher and the level of dedication and the level of respect that the students had for him to be showing up before school hours to practice. And at that point, I want to say the band was maybe 40 or 50 kids. There were definitely a lot of kids between the two grades that were in each band, and obviously that kind of dropped off a bit in high school. There were people that didn't stick with it, but there were a lot of kids that I can remember, and to have all those kids show up early is just, it's kind of a feat in itself. But that's one thing that I remember about being in band with Mr. Tree. And then the other thing was we had these practice rooms that were outside of the music rooms, and I'm not really sure that you could call them practice rooms because I think they were more like storage spaces, basically. But there was a lot of stuff in them too that made it really hard to actually go in and sit down and practice. And I think it was Molly was in one of them one day. She might have been rehearsing for a district's audition or something.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, there was a sink in one of them, and the sink got turned on.
Because it used to be a closet. Probably a janitor
Probably.
closet that just became part of the band's.
Probably. That would make more sense than any explanation that I could have possibly come up with for why there would be sinks in the practice rooms. But, I mean, the sink probably hadn't been turned on in a decade at least. And for whatever reason, the sink got turned on this particular day, and the water was coming out brown. And I just remember Molly coming in and panicking because the water was coming out and it was brown, and she didn't know why. And it's been so long that I don't even remember the details, but Mr. Tree went in and he must have made some sort of joke about it being something other than what it probably was, which was rust, because I just remember everybody, including Mr. Tree, cracking up, and it was the funniest thing. And it was just rusty water, but, you know, he made a joke
That's
out
a
of
septic
it.
tank. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was probably something along those lines, but I remember that was actually the last time that sink got turned on as well. But it was the rare occasion that somebody was actually in one of those rooms practicing. But just a funny story that I still remember to this day. But as Matt mentioned, the high school, middle school band rooms were right next to each other. So even if, you know, you'd moved on to high school, you still saw Mr. Tree on a regular basis because they were next to each other. And his office and Mrs. Cordio's office passed through the two rooms as well. So you could go in between them. And so, you know, occasionally he'd pop in if you were in Mrs. Cordio's room for a rehearsal or getting ready for a practice or something. And, you know, we'd all pop into his room from time to time. And so, you know, just because you'd moved on didn't mean you didn't still see Mr. Tree. But he had retired. I'm trying to remember if I was still in high school at the time, but he retired shortly after, and then he must have come out of retirement because I know he was teaching music at another school for a few years. And the last time I saw him was actually another one of our music teachers that we've talked about on previous shows, Mr. Smith, who was our jazz band director. When he passed away, that was the last time I think I saw Mr. Tree, was at the services for Mr. Smith. And I remember we had a nice conversation. I think I had just graduated from college, so we talked a little bit about how I had been in concert band and marching band, and I'd been playing French horn because I had played flute when I was in 4th grade through 8th grade and most of high school. And sadly, Mr. Tree passed away a couple of years later unexpectedly, but, you know, I know he had a huge impact on me. I can't say that I wouldn't have gotten into music and continued doing music to this point, but I think it's probably unlikely that had I not joined band in 4th grade and had such a wonderful teacher who was patient and, you know, put in the time with us to help us learn the instruments and better ourselves, I'm not sure that I would have ever gotten into music and continued doing music. So I owe Mr. Tree a debt of gratitude, and I know that, you know, he touched a lot of other people's lives too. So I'll end it there because I know Ted still has some stories as well, but those are just a few fond memories that I have of Mr. Tree. And with that, Ted, let's go over to you. And
Sure. Well, as we've already discussed, I started in band in 1996. So I was in 5th grade. You guys were in 4th. I opted not to do band at that point until got into middle school. So I wound up getting the clarinet. And I remember, you know, as you mentioned, it's hard to corral a bunch of middle schoolers, 5th graders with band and all of that. And I remember going through a couple of weeks just not getting how to read music. Like, sitting in class, I've got my clarinet and I'm like fresh into the instrument, so I have no idea what the heck's going on. And then I've got this hieroglyphics in front of me that I can't even, you know how to read this? It's a foreign language. I don't know what the heck what is this? So, you know, going from that, I do recall being frustrated, and Mr. Tree coming up to me and said, you know, how about you stay after school and I can teach you how to read music? And talked to my parents, got the okay that I'm going to miss the bus type of deal and stay after. And that's exactly what I wound up doing. And in that one session after school, it all clicked, and just me and him, and he broke it down and how it all made, and all of a sudden it made sense. So I definitely owe my reading of music in general to Mr. Tree, and then obviously him with his practice regimen, practice 20 minutes a day. That alone I still carry with me. I just recently just got a cello, and I'm working in my head 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Like it's still ingrained in me from him to keep on, for that perfection. And, you don't get good if it just sits in the case. So
Right.
Definitely one mantra that sticks with me.
So practice, people.
That's right. Practice.
20 minutes. That's all you need.
20 minutes. One thing I do recall is, once everything started clicking, I found I was pretty good at clarinet. And I think Mr. Tree saw that. And then when I was in 7th grade, when we graduated to the 7th, 8th grade combo band, I was promoted to first chair clarinet, which I thought was the coolest thing, because I replaced the first chair, which was a girl who was a year older than me, which I don't know what to tell you, but I felt really, it was a confidence booster, and Mr. Tree saw that and believed in me to be in that position, and that's something that I carried through to senior year. Some funny stories. He was the one to push me to audition for central districts on clarinet, and so I did practice with him after school, and he helped coach me on what they're looking for, and he actually wound up driving me to the district's audition. I forget where now, and it could have been. But one funny story about that car ride is that we went on the way back, we stopped for McDonald's, and kind of talked to, I talked to him about how it went. And then we were on our way back, and it happened to be our friend Kevin's birthday. And Mr. Tree had a cell phone in his car. And it was the first time I ever used a cell phone. And I called Kevin, and I wished him happy birthday on a cell phone.
Nice.
Mind blown.
Was it one of those big car phones that went in the middle of the...
I don't remember. It could have been, but I had never used a cell phone in my life.
That's the evidence of the mind being blown. You don't remember. It was just off.
It was there. But I was, and also you remembered your friends' phone numbers, little detour.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Easy to just dial. So different era altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So that was funny. Obviously, we talked about the stage crew things. And in the 8th grade, when we were basically for 8th grade graduation or things like that, before we moved on to high school, there was something called the Director's Award that Mr. Tree wound up giving once a year to an 8th grader for excellence in band. And I knew I was a good contender for it. And the other contender was a flute player who was also musically inclined, if you will, across the board, similar to most of us at that point. But this award definitely was one of my, I felt so proud that Mr. Tree selected me for this, that it was definitely one of my favorite awards for years and years and years. And, looking back fondly on it now, I mean, it's still one of my favorites. So definitely a prideful moment there. And then moving forward, I did get to see Mr. Tree even after he retired. He continued to work on musicals and different local plays. And there was one in particular called Spitfire Grill that he was doing the music for. At that point, he had reached out to my father, who was playing guitar, and Mr. Tree asked my father to join him in the music section for that musical. And So the two of them did practices and whatnot together. And then I went to the performance, which was in March of 2010. And after the performance was over, we're hanging around. I haven't seen Mr. Tree in a little while, wanted to catch up. And it was the final show. So all the performers were coming together on the stage and wanted to group picture. And for whatever reason, Mr. Tree asked myself and my wife to get up on the stage and get a picture with them, which I thought was a little weird. Like, I had nothing to do with this, but, sure, I'll be in a picture with you, absolutely. And turns out that was the last picture that I have of us in that crowd of the other performers. My dad's in the background of that picture, too. So all that being said, a couple of years later, finding out that he passed away was really tough. Went to the services, and there were so many former students, because he had taught music for 35 years. I feel like it was somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. And his family was definitely taken aback, not realizing, seeing the numbers of people that showed up for his services and how many lives that he impacted positively over the years with that. So, I owe basically all my music. I consider my music talent stemming directly from Mr. Tree for helping that flourish in that particular way. So definitely hits you right in the feels. You talk about Mr. Tree. So
dude,
yeah. Oh, final note: the senior wills we did in yearbook. I left a blurb for Mr. Tree on my senior will before I graduated high school. Left him all of my instruments. Remember, you used to write little blurbs like the whatever. Yeah, I did that for Mr. Tree for that too. But yeah, I rambled a little bit, but yeah. Anybody else have any other final stories before we jump into song of the week? Or
I mean, in a little bit of, it's funny too, because before this episode, I was reflecting back a lot of memories, and I'm gonna take a little dip on the other way to do a life's lesson for our listeners, for our audience that's listening to this specific episode. Ted mentioned, obviously, the Spitfire Grill production. And at one point, I was a part of that. And I'm saying that in a past tense. So the story behind that was that Mr. Tree at the time had a post for another guitar player. And of course, it's in Bear. Is it called Barry or Bear, Mass? Barry, Mass. Okay. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I'm living in Waltham, and I'm going, where the hell is Barry? But I'm like, all right. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, Mr. Tree, it'd be great to catch up and do another musical with him. He said, sure, Matt. No worries. I'd love to catch up. So we caught up, and he gave me the book, and he gave me the music, and he pretty much said, it's really, it's pretty basic. I'm sure that you'll be able to, run with it. So at that time, he also got Mr. Sparrow, and he then, started working on it. I listened to the music, and I said, yeah, it's pretty basic. And, we caught up, caught on, kept in touch. And, I'm going to try to, I'm going to try to hold this together or whatnot, especially today. But, at one point in time, I didn't have a job. I did just get back. I was within my first and a half year of, my military career. And at that time, I told him, hey, I'd be interested. He took me on, no questions asked. At that time, I was in a little bit of a financial issue, and the distance between Barrie and Waltham on almost like a couple nights a week really would have taken an effect on, gas and other things too. So at one point, Mr. Tree asked me in a group message, in a Facebook message, hey, do you think you could cover doing a whole show? I believe it was on March 21st. It was one of the production shows because, Ted, I think your dad had a conflict that day. So I said, yeah, sure, no worries. Well, I didn't show up. And of course, I didn't hear anything. I didn't get any sort of a call. I didn't get anything like a, hey, where are you? And I didn't show up because of the issues that were happening. So of course, later on, I was obviously embarrassed. I was really conflicted with how to approach, such an error on my end. So I wrote him a message. Okay. And I wrote him a message. It was pretty lengthy. And I told him pretty much, hey, you know what? I messed up because of this, this, and this. I don't blame you if you don't want to talk and whatnot. And really at that time, I really felt like, shit, this is a guy that, really helped me grow. How can I do this to, to this type of a teacher? So what I did was, so of course this is the day he replied back to me and he said, in quote, Matt, I was never upset with you. In fact, it's always good to keep an update, okay, on certain scenarios that happen. And I completely understand where you're coming from. He said, there's no doubt in my mind that, I am very proud of the musician that you have become. And I hope that one day, we'll work again. We'll work together again on another production, and I will take you up on that beer. Well, a couple months later comes by, and I found out that he passed away, and I was dumbfounded. I was quiet. I was numb, and I was really, really pissed off at myself. Really, really pissed off. And because that could have been the last time I've actually seen him in person. That could have been the time where we just caught up on good times, could have gotten more advice. And I remember going to the services and obviously, seeing, former teachers, seeing his family, give my condolences. I remember sitting in my car and just breaking down. So, because I wish I could have learned more about dedication back then. So moving forward, and this is the life lesson to everyone listening, is that when you dedicate yourself, put yourself 100%. Even if there's bumps in the road or whatnot, try to find a way, because you never know that, things could change. Life can change in a matter of an instance, and there's no way to go back. So I know I've taken my last conversation with Mr. Tree, even through, a message, okay, that, as much as I felt guilty, and I still live to it to this day, that's why, if any project I'm attached to, whether it's professional or, or just personal, dedication, you put yourself into it all the time. That it's, focus on the people that really care about you. And if you're going to lend a hand or whatnot, give it back 10 times fold. Because again, you'll never know if one day they're not going to be here. So if anything, Mr. Tree, not only has he impacted my life on that aspect, but it's also given me a teaching life lesson that things can change. And when you dedicate yourself. Don't half-ass it. Because where there's a will, there's a way. And if you can't find a way, then friggin' make one. So if anything, I still miss the guy to this day. I still reflect here and there, when the anniversary comes up, I reread that message. I kept that message. He's been gone for a while now, but if you have the opportunity to reach out to someone that you admire, someone that you has helped you grow, reach out to them. Really dive into, even if it's been a few years, even if it's been yesterday or even it's been like 20 years or whatnot. It's always good to catch up, especially for those that have taught. So,
Well,
other
I
than
think
that,
as in that note,
yeah.
it just goes to show the character that he had for and you know the faith that he had in all of us and all of his students, and the willingness to continue to assist and help everyone be better. And obviously, given that circumstance, he was still willing to obviously move past it. I'm sure in the behind the scenes it was probably a bit miffed, but
Mhm.
he didn't let that part show, and the compassion came through. So, I mean, to me, that it's just looking back and preparing for this episode, it's definitely a heavy weight to recall a lot of things because we all loved him so much. But definitely for the better. For all the fun times we did have and experiences we all share. So,
100%.
yeah,
100%.
definitely. Why we needed to dedicate a whole episode to him, because it definitely such a massive impact on who we are as musicians and where we are today because of it. So
Exactly. I think for all three of us and our colleagues and students as well, that anyone that's been impacted by Mr. Tree is the foundation of their musicianship and whatnot. But
yep. With
to
that
go
said,
on to a positive note,
yes,
now we're going back and whatnot. Hey, life lesson. Okay. He's a great guy. We all love him. We all miss him. Everyone listening could relate to it. And, other than that,
one thing I do want to add, though,
yes,
for those listeners, do you have a music teacher in your own past that might rival Mr. Tree? I know we are gushing over the memories of one person of importance in our lives, but obviously there's countless Mr. Trees out there in all different corners. So is there a music teacher that helped you grow musically, or have any fond memories from that you want to share? Reach out to us. Voice message, email. More than happy to check out what you guys think and who impacted your life musically.
Would you like to be a guest on another teacher appreciation episode or whatnot? That's what the show is about. So just like what Ted said, reach out to us, and we want to hear those stories. Again, it's teachers are in place to help students grow. What is a teacher? Okay, to be a mentor, and if you have someone that's like that, have the Mr. Trees of the world, the Mrs. Cordios of the world, the Mr. Smiths of the world. Let us know, because we love to hear it. But other than that, that's it for me. Do we have any other things? I know that we can extend.
We could probably sit here for a long time to finish everything else out.
Exactly.
But I think on this note, we should dive right into the song of the week.
All right.
And so my pick song of the week was a Mr. Tree special. American Patrol was the song that he would pull out every year, and on clarinet, being the melody of that particular song, it was a lot of fun to play. And for middle schoolers that want to or trying to build confidence in their instrument, once you understand melody and how it goes, it was one of the most fun pieces I played in middle school, hands down. So American Patrol March was written in 1885 by Frank White Meacham. And I'm sure we'll drop in a little sound clip here, but it's just a lot of fun. It's a traditional march, if you will, for that type of song. So that is my pick.
The Patrol March.
That's right. Kayla, what do you have?
So I had another, what I would consider a classic for the Mr. Tree days, Watermelon Man, which
I haven't heard that name in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
It's been so long since I don't even remember how it goes. I just know the title because I remember seeing that sheet of music.
I'll be listening to it after the show.
Yes.
Well, and it's funny because it's actually like it's going through my head right now. Yeah, no, Watermelon was a regular in our music lineup, and it was off of the 1962 Herbie Hancock debut album, Taken Off. And I swear, it was popular with us kids, but I swear we played it 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade,
Yep.
8th grade. It seemed like it was every year. And I do still hear it from time to time. I listen a lot to the Real Jazz Station on Sirius XM, and they'll play it.
Not a sponsor.
No, not a sponsor. Just so happens that I listen to it, and they play it more than any other station I've ever heard it on. And anytime I hear it, I instantly think of Mr. Tree and middle school band. It's really hard not to. The funny thing is, so I've been going through a lot of old tapes, and I found some of the old performances from middle school, and I'm quite sure that if you listen to the Herbie Hancock version, that it's much, much better than the version that we performed as middle schoolers.
That's not surprising.
Yeah.
Middle school.
That's correct. I mean, we're in middle school.
Yeah, but you
Right.
think you do okay, and then the parents
Yeah.
are like, "Oh my goodness."
But they don't tell you that. They're all
No,
like,
they
"Oh,
just say
that
you
was
sounded great."
I'm like,
Yeah.
That was great." And I've
Great.
got video of all of it. And it's a reminder when you watch it of like, ooh, they lied. They lied. They lied a lot. But no, you do. As a kid. Yeah, that's, yes. But as a kid, you know, you always felt like, oh, that was awesome. We did a fantastic job. And then to watch it now, it's like, could have been a little more in tune. But, you know, Watermelon Man is a good song. It's, I think, a Mr. Tree classic. And if you haven't heard it, again, we'll put in a sound clip, but check it out. We have a full playlist of all of the songs that we pick, or at least all of the songs that are available on Spotify. We'll put the link into the video. We also put it in the description of all of the podcasts. So if you want to find that, you can just click on the link, and you'll hear all of the songs for our pick of the week in their entirety, including the ones we're talking about today. So Watermelon Man, Herbie Hancock, my pick of the week. Matt, what do you have for us?
all right. So, I'll never forget. I want to say this was 5th grade band, 5th or 6th, but 1984 composed by Jerry Goldsmith. I'm gonna have to go with Gremlin Rag from the motion picture Gremlins. First listening to the song when we played it, instantly fell in love with it. I thought it was such a groovy tune. Got like essence of rock behind it, and just the bass power behind, you know, the composition just made me really, really love the piece of music that we played, to the point where I've heard of Gremlins. I may have played Gremlins on, you know, the original Nintendo, but I never saw the movie. So when we started playing this, that's when I first picked up watching Gremlins, the movie, and I heard this, and it got me to be better at practicing my part in the Gremlin Rag, because I was listening to how it was in the motion picture and on paper. So every time I watch the movie Gremlins, I always think about Mr. Tree. We played it during the fall and winter session. So again, we had two types of concerts. We had one in the fall and we had one in the spring. And I think this fit because Gremlins, at least the first one, was in an era around the holiday season. So every time I think of, you know, holiday season, I think of you know, when I'm watching Gremlins, I'm always thinking about this 1984 composition piece by Jerry Goldsmith, Gremlin Rag. Other than that, like we always say, ladies and gentlemen, children, everyone out there who's listening, third world countries, outside the universe, what is your song of the week? Let us know. Tell us in a voicemail. Tell us in an email. Message us. We want to hear what you guys think. Again, everyone, thank you for reaching out to us. For those who are currently reaching out to us, I think for us still being, starting off this podcast, we've gotten a lot of great positive reviews, a lot of support, a lot of, great positive reviews about how they're enjoying this show. And, again, this is what the show's about. It's about having fun, and it's also very open. Feel like you want to reach out to us if you want to share us a story, whether, it's about this topic or another topic, or some topic that you just want to make up. We'll go ahead and talk about, as long as it's, music related, and not politics. So other than that, let us know what you guys think. Okay. That I think we'll conclude for that. We reach us by email, distortedopinions@gmail.com.
Distorted Opinion Show.
Oh goodness, I always mess this up. You know what? Forget it. I'm not even going to mention the email.
How many times have we listened to Kayla say this, and you don't know our own email address?
Hey, what
Distorted Opinions Show @gmail.
Distorted Opinions.
That's it.
Show.
Ted's wrapping it.
Yeah, I got a new job now.
I'll just ask the audience. Hey, tell us what you want, and then Kayla,
send it to the wrong email address.
So, yeah. If you send it to Distorted Opinions, we've had this discussion on a previous show. If you send it to distortedopinions@gmail.com, I don't know who you're going to reach, but it's not going to be us.
Actually, try it out and let us know what you guys think. the response.
Somebody's going to be annoyed.
I know.
Somebody is gonna come looking for Distorted Opinions, and we're gonna get an email at distortedopinionsshow@gmail.com being like, why are you telling people to email me about your show?
We didn't say that. We're just saying.
We didn't say that. Hey, you want to be a guest?
Send it to us where we can get it.
Today on Distorted Opinions, we have Distorted Opinions.
Distorted Opinion Show at gmail.com. And just so that we have it right, anchor.fm/distorted opinions. There's no show on that. It's Distorted Opinions. The only thing that we couldn't get.
No.
Anchor.fm.
We're going to press the eject button on your microphone.
You know that bang that Ted said?
Yeah, we're going to get that flash
The
pot.
flash pot? Matt's going to disappear. In a flash of smoke from the flash pot with big bang.
It wouldn't be no surprise that if I tried to, obviously advertise where you could find us, that I may accidentally send you to an adult site, not obviously on purpose. Okay, I don't know what anchor.com is. Don't try it. Yes, anchor.fm/distorted opinions.
And you can leave us a message there or find all of the platforms we're on. And as a reminder, because I know Ted likes to remind people about this, if you're listening on iTunes, leave us a review and rate us. That helps us get found by more people. So let us know what you think of the show there.
To be fair, I think that might be, people will definitely remember because we've said our actual email so many times. So I think it worked.
Why not?
Put it in the text.
Distorted Opinions Show.
I'm like on edge, about ready to say no. No. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Definitely appreciate you guys' support, and looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any music teachers that influenced you in the past or currently, let us know, and we'll talk with you guys next week.
Boom!
Thanks for watching.